I stood in the ruins of my wife's dream mansion, breathing diesel fumes in disbelief after the brutal sunrise demolition shattered everything we built together. 6 relentless hours of roaring bulldozers reduced $4 million of memories into splintered beams, shattered glass, and silence echoing across the valley below. The infinity pool she designed during chemotherapy now drained helplessly into dirt, its blue water disappearing like the future we once promised each other. At exactly 7:07 a.m., an automated email claimed demolition authorization over unpaid HOA fines I supposedly ignored for months. Unpaid was the lie Patricia Holloway confidently repeated, assuming grief had weakened my resolve beyond resistance or retaliation. Every fine had been paid twice, documented carefully, stamped officially, and archived securely inside both physical files and encrypted digital records. What Patricia never anticipated was that 3 weeks earlier, I had sworn an oath as the newly elected governor of this state. Before politics, before headlines, I was simply a husband honoring a dying promise made beside hospital machines and fading heartbeat rhythms. Elaine designed that mansion between chemotherapy sessions, sketching window placements while 4 lines traced fragile veins beneath pale skin. From her hospital bed, she insisted every sunrise window face the Continental Divide, capturing light she feared she would never see again. She made me promise to build it exactly as drawn, no compromises, no shortcuts, no surrender to small-minded neighbors. I spent 2 disciplined years honoring every architectural line she imagined, down to reclaimed barn beams and imported limestone floors. For 8 brief months after completion, grief rested gently inside those walls instead of suffocating me entirely. Then Patricia arrived, draped in turquoise authority, 9 years HOA president, undefeated, unquestioned, feared by nearly every homeowner quietly. Her first complaint targeted paint color already approved unanimously in signed committee minutes she conveniently ignored. I repainted without protest, paid the fine, and chose patience over pride, believing cooperation would end unnecessary hostility. Instead, violations multiplied monthly with mechanical precision, each citation more absurd than the last one delivered. Wildflowers planted to prevent hillside erosion were labeled unsightly hazards, threatening neighborhood aesthetic harmony standards. My housekeeper Lucia was suddenly described as a suspicious presence, requiring documentation and constant background verification. The undertone of those requests revealed prejudice disguised carefully behind policy enforcement, language, and procedural intimidation. Within 1 exhausting year, I had paid $34,000 simply to preserve peace. When election night declared my victory as governor, Patricia's expression shifted from smug certainty to visible panic. Power recognizes greater power, and she understood her unchecked reign faced inevitable scrutiny soon. During my policy conference in Washington, she executed her carefully timed plan with calculated cruelty. No certified notice arrived, no hearing scheduled, only for hours warning before machines surrounded my empty property. Through a neighbor's trembling phone call, I listened helplessly as timber cracked and glass exploded violently. Excavator claws crushed Elaine's atrium, while Patricia observed nearby wearing pristine white linen in satisfaction. Her smile as beams collapsed became the first mental photograph I preserved for court evidence. Civil rights attorney Mariana Soto arrived before sunrise the following morning, fury balanced perfectly with professionalism. Land use specialist Kurt Bellamy followed, carrying statutes memorized and precedent cases already bookmarked meticulously. We walked across rubble, documenting procedural shortcuts, permit irregularities, and environmental violations hidden beneath dust clouds. State property law required 30 days formal notice before demolition proceedings could legally begin. Patricia had authorized destruction after only 4 hours, exploiting my temporary absence deliberately. Financial audits soon revealed darker motivations beneath petty enforcement and exaggerated compliance theatrics. $127,000 collected for community paving improvements had vanished without explanation. Bank transfers traced those funds directly into a Nevada shell corporation registered under Patricia's private ownership. Her husband Garrett billed $60,000 for non-existent security patrols never documented or verified. Their daughter's landscaping company received inflated contracts without competitive bids or transparent approval votes. Meanwhile, the actual paving contractor remained unpaid, filing liens that threatened neighborhood foreclosure consequences. Patricia demolished my home before anyone could uncover her expanding financial manipulation scheme. She feared investigation more than she valued architectural consistency or community harmony. We organized 26 homeowners willing to provide sworn affidavits, despite years of intimidation. Elderly resident Iris described repeated threats over rosebush height exceeding arbitrary measurement guidelines. Lucia courageously recounted discriminatory documentation demands made in front of neighbors intentionally. Banker boxers filled Kurt's office, each containing evidence Patricia assumed nobody would ever examine closely. Emails surfaced revealing her directive stating, "Find any reason necessary to remove him permanently." That sentence alone shifted narrative from administrative dispute to deliberate targeted harassment campaign. An independent engineering report uncovered asbestos containment violations during rapid demolition procedures. No environmental notices were filed, exposing families downwind to hazardous airborne particles unknowingly. We filed simultaneous federal complaints alongside civil litigation seeking restitution and accountability measures. Patricia retaliated publicly through podcasts portraying herself as a volunteer victim attacked unfairly. Certain commentators framed me as vindictive elite abusing office to settle personal scores. I remained publicly silent, allowing documented facts to mature quietly without emotional interference. The quarterly town hall meeting became our chosen arena for complete transparency. 3 cameras streamed live as homeowners filled the clubhouse, anticipating confrontation. Patricia opened confidently, boasting increased reserves and rising property valuations under her leadership. She referenced my supposed unpaid fines, attempting to reinforce false credibility publicly, approached the microphone calmly, carrying 19 cashier check copies proving full payment history. Committee approval signatures contradicted every violation notice she personally authorized afterward. Homeowners passed documentation row by row, whispers escalating into audible disbelief. Contractor Rick Delgado stood trembling, presenting invoices totaling $145,000 unpaid. He described completing paving projects without receiving promised compensation for months. Kurt displayed Nevada incorporation records linking shell accounts directly to Patricia. Gasps filled the clubhouse as financial timelines projected clearly across the screen. Mariana projected the incriminating email, ordering my removal before next election cycle. Patricia's composure fractured visibly beneath harsh fluorescent lighting and live streaming scrutiny. Her response began with, "You people always misunderstand responsibility, exposing bias unmistakably." Deputy Voss, present for routine oversight, immediately radioed financial crimes investigators. Live viewer counts surged beyond 8,000 as confrontation intensified rapidly. Homeowners demanded an emergency vote removing Patricia from presidency immediately. The motion passed overwhelmingly before her attorney could object procedurally. Patricia exited abruptly as cameras followed her into dark parking lot silence. 6 days later, federal agents arrived at her residence precisely at dawn. Wire fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy charges filled the official indictment pages. Garrett faced additional counts including intimidation and coordinated vandalism. The HOA insurance carrier negotiated swift settlement totaling $1.2 million. Restitution checks distributed with accumulated interest restored community trust gradually. Rick finally received his full payment, clearing debts threatening his small business survival. Iris paid off her remaining mortgage and funded local library renovations generously. The legislature introduced comprehensive homeowner protection reform within weeks afterward. Mandatory 60-day notices became required before any foreclosure or demolition action statewide. Self-dealing by association officers was reclassified as felony misconduct under new statutes. I signed the reform bill inside that same clubhouse before grateful residents. Elaine's scholarship fund launched simultaneously, supporting aspiring architecture students annually. Patricia ultimately accepted a plea agreement, avoiding prolonged public trial exposure. 8 years in federal prison replaced her once untouchable gated authority status. I rebuilt modestly using salvaged timber recovered carefully from original foundation remains. The new house felt like shelter in memory, not monument or political symbol. Wildflowers returned across the hillside, blooming defiantly without aesthetic committee objections. Lucia continued managing the residence proudly, her dignity never again questioned publicly. Ridgemont Estates implemented transparent audits, open meetings, and rotating leadership accountability measures. No further demolitions occurred in subsequent years, only steady rebuilding of trust. Families now walk a public trail across preserved acreage once threatened by secrecy. Grief transformed into justice. Justice strengthened community. Accountability finally stood taller than any mansion ever could.